Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into what might be the most critical skill for anyone navigating today's working world: self-management.
Absolutely, because the old model, it's gone.
Hmm.
Companies aren't mapping out your career path anymore.
Right. They just can't. The reality is you, the knowledge worker, you have to be the CEO of your own career now.
And that's a huge shift.
Yeah.
We're not talking 30 years with a gold watch anymore. I think maybe 50 years of work. 50 years where you need to stay sharp, engaged, productive.
That level of self-awareness, knowing yourself deeply, it used to be for like the Napoleons or the Picassos of the world.
Yeah, the historical giants. But
Yeah.
now it's table stakes for everyone who wants to build a career with lasting impact.
So we've looked at the key thinking on this, and there's this really powerful, almost timeless framework that keeps coming up. Our mission today is to unpack the 5 essential questions, mainly from Peter Drucker's work, that really form the bedrock of this personal CEO strategy.
Think of it as your personal operating manual. If you can really answer these 5 questions, you're essentially charting your course. They are: what are my strengths? How do I perform? What are my values? Where do I belong? And finally, what should my contribution be?
Okay, let's start right at the beginning. The absolute foundation. What are my strengths?
This is where most people stumble right away.
Yeah.
We tend to rely on what we think we're good at, or maybe what people tell us.
Flattery, basically.
Exactly, which is, useless for this. The fundamental truth is you perform from strength. You simply cannot build sustainable performance on your weaknesses. It doesn't work.
So if gut feelings are out and compliments don't count, how do you find that objective truth? The sources point to one specific method, and it sounds almost deceptively simple: feedback analysis.
It's the only way that consistently works. It's straightforward. Every time you make a key decision or take a significant action, you write down what you expect the result to be.
Okay, like a prediction.
Precisely. Then, maybe 9, 12 months down the line, you pull out that note and compare the actual results to what you expected. Do this consistently.
And the patterns emerge.
The patterns become undeniable. You see your real strengths where you consistently hit the mark. You also see your blind spots, maybe areas where you're overly optimistic, and crucially, areas where you're just not competent.
It sounds rigorous, almost like something from, I don't know, centuries ago.
Well, you're not wrong. What's really fascinating is this isn't some new management technique. Its roots go back to, believe it or not, a German theologian in the 14th century, and it was later refined and used systematically by both John Calvin and the Jesuits in the 15th and 16th centuries.
No kidding. Calvinists and Jesuits.
Yes. That relentless focus on analyzing performance against expectations is a huge part of why those movements spread so effectively. They operated based on analyzed strength, not just belief or hope.
Wow. So if it's that old and that powerful, why aren't we all doing it? Is it just hard work? Or maybe we don't want to know the answers.
I suspect it's often the fear of facing that reality.
Yeah.
But once you push through and get that data, the so what becomes your action plan. First step, concentrate. Focus your energy where your strengths deliver results. Don't try to be a jack of all trades.
Double down on what works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Second, work on improving those strengths.
Right.
Acquire the skills or knowledge needed to make your strengths truly effective. You might not be a born mathematician, but everyone can learn enough trigonometry if it supports their core engineering strength.
Okay, so strength and strengths. What else?
Third, and this is a big one, tackle intellectual arrogance.
Ooh, that sounds familiar in expert circles. What is it?
It's when someone highly skilled in one area dismisses the importance of knowledge in other areas. Think of the brilliant coder who scoffs at people skills, or the HR expert who ignores basic financial literacy.
Right, taking pride in ignorance outside your silo.
And it's incredibly limiting. It guarantees failure in any role that requires collaboration or broader understanding. You have to have the humility to recognize other domains matter.
And what about bad habits? The things that get in the way of using those strengths, like the genius strategist who never actually follows through.
Those have to be rooted out. Because a strength undermined by a bad habit isn't a strength in practice. That planner needs to learn that ideas point the way. But execution, the bulldozers, as Drucker put it, actually moves the mountains. Feedback analysis will show you if you have an execution problem.
And related to that, manners. Really?
Seems basic, right? But think of manners as the essential lubricant in any organization. Even brilliant contributions can cause friction and fail if delivered rudely or dismissively. Simple courtesy makes everything work smoother.
Okay, so wrapping up strengths, the final point seems to be about energy. Where to put your effort.
Absolutely crucial. Don't waste significant effort trying to improve areas where you have low competence. The return on investment is terrible. It takes vastly more energy to go from incompetent to mediocre than from first-rate to truly excellent.
Focus on getting better where you're already good.
Maximize the return on the talent you actually possess. That's the core strategy.
Okay, we've nailed down what we do well, our strengths. Now let's shift to how we do it. This is the second question. How do I perform?
Right. And this is about your style, your personality. It's largely baked in early on. You're probably not going to fundamentally change how you perform best.
So the game is figuring out your style and working with it, not against it.
Exactly. Optimize for how you naturally achieve results. And the first big piece of this puzzle is finding out. Are you primarily a reader or a listener?
This sounds simple, but you mentioned earlier getting this wrong can have massive consequences, like presidency-destroying consequences.
It's not an exaggeration. Look at Eisenhower versus Johnson. Ike was a classic reader.
Yeah.
As Supreme Commander in WWII, he demanded written briefs, analyzed them, asked questions based on them he excelled.
Okay.
But as president in freewheeling press conferences, trying to act like a listener, he often came across as rambling, incoherent. He was performing outside his strength zone.
And Lyndon Johnson.
The opposite. A master listener, phenomenal in face-to-face Senate negotiations, reading the room, reacting in real time. But he kept Kennedy's staff, who were brilliant writers, used to sending dense memos. Johnson just didn't absorb information well that way.
So critical information might have just slipped through the cracks because of the format.
History suggests yes. A catastrophic mismatch of performance style and information delivery. In today's world, this means, do you need that pre-read document or do you need the verbal debrief? Working against your natural mode is just inefficient.
Beyond reader-listener, what else defines performance style? How we learn.
Definitely. How do you personally internalize new information? Churchill famously learned by writing things out.
He had to articulate it on paper.
Exactly. Others learn by talking. Think trial lawyers rehearsing arguments, or diagnosticians talking through symptoms. They hear themselves speak, and it clarifies their thinking. Beethoven took endless notes. Apparently never looked at them again, but the act of writing burned it into his memory.
So the key isn't just knowing how you learn, but actually structuring your work around that knowledge.
That's the gap. Most people know, deep down, how they learn best. But few deliberately shape their roles or tasks to align with that. If you learn by talking, but your job is purely email-based analysis, well, you're handicapping yourself.
What about working relationships? Team player, loner, subordinate.
You have to know which environment brings out your best. General Patton may be the best subordinate commander the U.S. Army ever had, but his temperament probably would have been disastrous as the overall supreme commander.
Interesting. So being a great number 2 doesn't mean you'll be a great number 1.
Very often not. The advisor role is different from the ultimate decision-maker role. That number 2 might excel at analysis and counsel, but freeze when they have to make the final lonely call. Knowing if you thrive as the decision-maker or the advisor is crucial self-knowledge.
That brings up a tough question, though. If my performance style is, say, loner or advisor, does that put a ceiling on my career if the top jobs require being a team-leading decision-maker?
It puts a limit on the kinds of top jobs you'll excel in, perhaps. But it doesn't necessarily limit your ultimate success or contribution. It means you need to find or build a structure where your style works. A brilliant loner can lead, but they need an excellent team to handle the day-to-day people management they might dislike or be poor at.
So you don't change your core engine, you build the right car around it.
That's a great way to put it. Optimize the system for your performance engine.
Okay, we've got strengths, the what, we've got performance style, the how. Now we move into trickier territory. Values. What are my values?
And this is where things get really personal. It moves beyond just skill into, well, conscience and fit. First, let's separate values from ethics.
Okay, important distinction.
Ethics are, or should be, universal. Drucker's used the mirror test. Can you look at yourself in the mirror in the morning and respect the person you see? That's the ethical baseline for everyone.
So don't do things that make you ashamed of yourself.
Right. Values, though, are about alignment. They determine if you and an organization are compatible. What does the organization truly reward? What does it punish? What does it prioritize?
Why is that compatibility so vital for success? Can't you just do your job well, even if you don't believe in the company way?
You can perform tasks, maybe, but you won't thrive, and you likely won't last. Think about it. One company promotes strictly from within, valuing loyalty and internal development. Another prides itself on bringing in fresh blood from outside.
Both legitimate strategies.
Totally legitimate,
Yeah.
but they represent fundamentally different values about people and opportunity. If your personal value is deep loyalty and growing with a team, joining that fresh blood company will lead to constant friction and resentment. Even if you're a top performer by their metrics, your definition of good performance might clash with theirs.
And this can lead to that really difficult situation where what you're good at, your strengths, actually conflicts with what you believe in, your values.
And when that happens, values have to win. They are the ultimate test. Drucker himself told a story about being a very successful young investment banker during the Depression. It fit his analytical strengths perfectly.
But he quit.
He quit because he realized that, for him, maximizing asset value just wasn't as important as contributing more directly to people's lives and society. His values didn't align with the work, despite his success. That tells you values define what work feels meaningful enough for a long career.
Which leads us logically to the fourth question, kind of the synthesis of the first three, where do I belong?
Exactly. This isn't guesswork. You take your answers, your strengths, your performance style, your core values, and you use them like filters. They define the environment to the type of organization, the kind of role where you are most likely to flourish.
And a key insight here is that it might be easier to figure out where you don't belong first.
Often, yes. That's a very practical starting point. If you know you need structure, you say no to the chaotic startup, no matter how exciting it sounds. If you know you're an advisor, not the final decision maker, you turn down that CEO role, even if it's flattering.
It's about knowing yourself well enough to recognize a bad fit, even if it looks good on paper.
Precisely. That's the preparation part. Truly successful careers, Drucker argued, aren't meticulously planned like a military campaign 5 years out. They happen when people who are prepared, who know themselves, encounter opportunities that genuinely fit them.
So knowing where you belong unlocks performance because you're finally in the right place.
It can transform an ordinary, competent person into an outstanding performer simply because their environment finally allows their strengths and style to shine.
Okay, 4 questions down. We know our strengths, how we perform, our values, and where we belong. Now, the final piece, taking action. Question 5. What should I contribute?
This shifts the focus outward, from self-understanding to impact. As a knowledge worker, you need to ask yourself this constantly, and the answer requires looking at 3 things.
What are they?
First, what does the situation actually require? Forget your own preferences for a moment, what needs doing. Where's the biggest gap or the most pressing need?
Second,
Given my unique combination of strengths, style, and values, how can I make the greatest contribution to meeting that need? Where's the intersection of what's required and what I do best?
and third,
Third, what specific, measurable results need to be achieved to make a real difference? Not just improve things, but what tangible outcome will show success.
that measurability feels key, especially in knowledge work where things can be fuzzy. How do you make contribution measurable when you're not, say, making widgets?
You focus on visible impact. Take the example of a hospital administrator Drucker described. The hospital was okay, but kind of stagnant. The administrator identified the ER. It was notoriously sloppy and slow as a high-visibility problem area.
Okay, a clear problem.
His contribution goal wasn't just improve the ER. It was specific and measurable. Every patient arriving at the ER will be seen by a qualified nurse within 60 seconds.
Wow, that's precise.
And demanding. But achieving that goal didn't just fix the ER. It sent ripples through the entire hospital. It required changes in admitting, labs, radiology. It visibly lifted the performance and culture of the whole institution within 2 years. That's measurable impact.
And these contribution plans, they shouldn't be like 5-year plans, more like shorter term.
Generally, yes. Aim for something achievable within, say, 18 months. Long enough to be substantial, but short enough to maintain focus and urgency. It should be a stretch, but doable.
And making that contribution almost always involves other people, right? Which leads to managing relationships.
Inevitably.
Yeah.
Very few knowledge workers operate entirely alone. So self-management absolutely includes managing your relationships effectively. There are 2 main parts to this.
Okay, part 1.
Part 1 is simply accepting and understanding that the people you work with, your boss, your colleagues, your direct reports, they are individuals too. They have their own strengths, their own ways of performing, their own values.
You need to learn their operating manuals too.
You absolutely do. And crucially, you take responsibility for making those relationships work. This means adapting your communication and interaction to be effective with them. It's on you to figure out if your boss is a listener or a reader.
Don't send the 50-page report to the listener boss.
Please don't. Or don't try to give a quick hallway briefing to the reader boss who needs to see it written down. You adjust to their style to make the interaction productive. That's your responsibility.
Makes sense. And part 2 of relationship responsibility.
Part 2 is about communication and trust. Why do most workplace conflicts happen? Often, it's simply because people don't know what others are doing, how they're working, or what they're trying to achieve. Assumptions fill the vacuum.
Misunderstandings, basically.
Exactly. Modern organizations run on trust, not command and control. And trust doesn't mean you have to like everyone. It means you have to understand them. Understanding comes from clear communication.
So the action step here is just tell people.
Pretty much. Be proactive. Tell your key colleagues, your boss, your team, look, this is what I'm good at. This is how I work, best reader, listener, etc. These are my core values. And this is the contribution I'm focusing on for the next 18 months.
Lay your cards on the table.
Yes. And then, critically, ask them the same questions about themselves. What are your strengths? How do you work best? What are you focused on? That transparency builds trust incredibly quickly and cuts through so much potential conflict.
Okay, that covers the 5 questions and relationships. But before we wrap up, there's this other major factor, the sheer length of modern careers. If you nail all this self-management by, say, 40 or 45, you've still got maybe 20, 25 years of work ahead of you. What then?
This is a huge emerging challenge. We're seeing knowledge workers who are, frankly, finished in their primary career by their mid-40s. They've climbed the ladder, achieved their goals, and now they're bored, profoundly bored.
The so-called midlife crisis.
It's often mislabeled, I think. It's less a crisis of identity and more a crisis of purpose and engagement. You simply can't stay stimulated doing the exact same thing at the same level for 50 years. It necessitates actively planning for a second half of your working life, a second career, essentially.
And the sources suggest there are a few main ways to approach this second career.
Yeah, 3 common patterns emerge. First, you can simply start one, a complete pivot into a different field. Maybe the senior business exec becomes an administrator at a nonprofit, or enters the clergy, or starts a craft business, applying existing skills in a totally new context.
Okay, a full switch. What's the second way?
Develop a parallel career. You keep your primary, often demanding job, but you carve out maybe 10 hours a week for something else substantial, usually in the nonprofit sector. Running the local school board, managing a church's finances, leading a community arts council.
So 2 tracks running side by side.
Exactly. Leveraging your skills for a different kind of impact, often providing a lot of personal satisfaction outside the corporate grind.
And the third path, the social entrepreneur.
Right. This is where someone who's built a successful business starts shifting their focus and often their resources towards founding and running a significant nonprofit venture, while perhaps still overseeing their original business. Bob Buford, who built a large TV company and then focused on organizations supporting church leaders, is a classic example.
For any of these paths, the switch, the parallel, the social venture, the key seems to be starting early. You can't wait until you're 50 and bored to figure it out.
Absolutely not. The prerequisite is you have to begin exploring and developing these second interests long before you hit that mid-career wall. Ideally, start thinking about it and maybe dabbling before you even turn 40.
Why is that early groundwork so crucial?
Because these second interests, and they need to be serious interests, not just casual hobbies, provide incredible resilience. Life happens. Everyone faces professional setbacks, dead ends, maybe company failures, or personal tragedies.
Right.
That second career, that parallel track, becomes an anchor. It's an area where you can still contribute, still feel effective, still have success and dignity, even if your main career hits turbulence. It's psychological insurance in a world that demands continuous success. Having options is vital.
So wrapping this all up, this deep dive really highlights a fundamental shift. The old assumptions that organizations outlive workers, that people stay put, they're gone. Self-management isn't a nice-to-have, it's the core requirement.
It really is a revolution in how we have to think about work and life. You are the CEO of you. And these 5 questions, strengths, performance, values, belonging, contribution, aren't things you figure out once. They're tools for ongoing management, for navigating that potentially 50-year journey.
It's a continuous process of self-discovery and strategic action.
Absolutely. So maybe the final thought for everyone listening, if you started to grapple with these questions, if you have a clearer sense of your strengths, your style, your values, ask yourself this: what is the one specific, measurable result you can achieve in the next, say, 18 months? that leverages all that self-knowledge and will make the biggest positive difference right now?
A powerful question to consider. That's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.